1160 and WCCSradio.com. And he is Dr. Ralph May, who's come in. It wasn't raining when you came in, was it?
I brought rain with me. That's
Yeah.
not a good sign, but we need the rain, so it is a good sign, I guess.
Dr. May joins us this morning, presented by Marcus & Mack, voted best law firm and best personal injury lawyer 3 years in a row in the Best of Indiana County contest. Visit them online at marcusandmack.com. I asked Dr. May to come join us to talk a little bit about the start of the school year and mental health and students,
Yes.
which is a big, big topic these days, and rightfully so. It's something that we really need to draw attention to. There are so many pressures on students. We're going to have a guest from Fox in our next hour talking about how teens feel the pressure to be perfect.
Right.
But in school settings, there's pressure from your peers, from your teachers, from your class, from your family. There's pressures on kids, and it affects mental health.
Well, it does. I think the demands for performance have always been around. I know I went through it myself. The issue is, there is no perfection. You're going to make mistakes. I think the way we talk to ourselves about our performance, the way we talk to ourselves about our challenges is very important, particularly at any age, but particularly for teens and college students, by the way. Today's IUP's first day. And so the idea being it's a challenge, but it doesn't have to be something you do absolutely right all the time. You will fail. I think there's this concept that we're never supposed to make mistakes. We're never supposed to screw up. We will. It's inevitable. And I think that when I look at my own life and I talk to the people the people I respect, they talk about when you do make mistakes and you can tolerate that, you can learn from your mistakes, not deride yourself or blame yourself or blame someone else or become overwhelmed by that. That is a real key component of coping, to be able to roll with the punches. So you're not going to live and die by an A or a B or a C. Mm-hmm. The goal is, do you learn something from that experience? Do you acquire some self-resiliency, some ability to bounce back from that? I mean, I think we look at athletes and they have to have that, right? Because you don't win every game.
Yeah.
You have to have your ability to perform, but you also have to have your ability to do well when you don't do well.
Other pressures on students include pressures about their appearance, those
Right.
generally coming from their peers.
Right.
And that can really, really weigh somebody down, whether it's an appearance based upon how you look or what you wear.
Right.
It doesn't really matter. If you feel over-scrutinized for the way that you look, that's going to affect you.
Well, social media has amplified that. It's always been an issue, but the idea, bullying happens. A lot of bullying happens. And, look right, you're not wearing the right clothes. I think during teenage years are very stormy periods of time in our development. We want to fit in. We want to belong. We want to figure out who we are. But where do we belong? Who are we? What kind of person do we want to be? And so our dress, our attire is part of that. We experiment with different ways of looking. And I think it's very important that you recognize that how you are inside is not how you wear your clothes or what you wear, how you wear your hair. That is just part of your exploration of self. Mm-hmm. So you're going to get people sometimes that are going to challenge you, and you're going to get people who support you. And that comes with the territory. You need to not let that external part of yourself become something that defines too much of the internal.
I remember when a teacher of mine from high school years passed away a few years ago. I was talking to somebody about them, and I said, with this particular teacher, he was such a wonderful guy. And he said, I said, one day he sat me down and he said, the way that people see you now as a 16-year-old kid is not going to define you for the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
That's a message we need to somehow get to our children, and that's where parents and people who are in those mentor-type roles can be really, really valuable in a kid's life.
Absolutely. We have a fancy term for it in psychology. It's called normalization. We have to put a fancy term on everything. But what this means is you make something normal. This is a normal part of development that we go through. When you're an adolescent, you feel like every moment is the most intense you've ever felt. 10 years later, not so much. 20 years later, not so much. What we do in adolescence helps shape us, but it doesn't have to define us. Mm-hmm. We have the power to make those choices. And I think it's important to remember that. Good mentors, good supports are very important. we talk about the stress on the kids, but the stress on the teachers and the stress on the parents is also significant. And how the teachers and mentors and coaches and parents react has a lot to do with how well the kids react, whether it's elementary, middle, or secondary, or even going into college. I think some of the most stressful times are when you look around at freshmen coming to college, leaving home. It's a very stressful time as well. And so those forces are still at play there.
Yeah. Sometimes with those college kids, when they come home after that first semester, they look and they act like an entirely different person.
They're trying on a different person, for the first time. They've gotten away from their structure and they're defining themselves a little differently. That also isn't how you end up, but it is part of the process of learning about yourself.
Yeah. So we've been talking generally about teens. Let's go to the elementary grades, because there are mental health issues for younger students too. Especially those ones who, for the very first time in their very, very young lives, at the developmental stage at which they find themselves, and it's so different from kid to kid even, they have pressures. What are some of the mental problems or mental health problems that a youngest of our students would deal with?
Anxiety. It's almost a universal reaction. Now, not necessarily clinical anxiety, but the normal reaction of anxiety of change, doing something different. My routine is different. I'm away from my family more. I'm interacting with new people, new issues. And so anxiety is extremely common. I read an article in preparation for this. 97% of parents of elementary kids feel anxiety during the first 2 or 3 weeks of sending them to school. Because I'm separating from my child, I'm sending my child into an environment. And so sometimes we recommend the parents meet the teachers first and, kind of get the lay of the land a little bit so they can ease their child into the process. The good news is that most of the anxiety fades over several days and weeks as the child develops a new routine. And at home, the most important thing the parents can do to ease that process is talk with the child about their day, get them to engage, discuss what it's like and the good and the bad and normalize it that this is what I went through. This is what everybody goes through. You're going to be fine, but talk about the details. It's easier it's easier usually to talk to an elementary age and middle age child than a secondary, than a high school child. I remember my niece, Riley. How'd your day go, Riley? Fine. Okay, you're going to have to, you're going to have to say, well, tell me a little more. Let's talk about how the good and the bad of this. What do you think this year is going to be like? So the parent needs to engage a little bit more in conversation.
It's a bit of a mistake then to say, okay, you're home from school now. Forget all of that. Forget if you had a bad day at school. Forget about all that. Let's go do something fun. That's not necessarily the best approach if you're not also addressing what went on.
Right. You have to talk about it. And it doesn't have to be a long conversation, but a conversation that shows interest. Just to get them to know that they can always talk to you about things. And then you can do some fun things, break up the rhythm a little bit and have some fun things to do. So it's a both. I know one of the things family therapists have talked about since I went into the profession over 40 years ago is the family meal, the evening meal. We've lost a lot of that because we're all so busy, but really in truth, one of the best ways to do that is everybody at least agrees to sit down for 45 minutes to an hour, have dinner, put the phones and the tablets away, and we eat and we talk a little bit, and then we go on and do our fun things. But that is something that if I could instill something in families, that would be something that I would recommend very strongly.
I want to ask you about this pressure that we haven't addressed specifically so far. And that is the overfilled schedule.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
The academic schedule is what it is. We know that, but we've got extracurriculars here. Yeah. We're running there, and we're maybe even doing a job outside of school. There's only so many hours in a day.
It's a formula for burnout. I mean, you're going to overload yourself. And I know there's a tremendous need. I want to do this. I want to do that. I've got all these things I want to do. I like prioritizing what is the best thing to do, the most important thing to do is important, but you've got to leave room for downtime because if you don't, you're going to burn out. And it'll affect your grades, it'll affect your mental health and wellness overall. You'll start to get anxious, you'll start to get worn down, you'll get tired, and then your concentration will start to go, and then you'll start to notice things aren't going so well. So I would suggest right up front, decide what I really want to do this semester or this year, and stick with that, but don't keep adding stuff just because you can, because that's really not a good plan.
Yeah. schools themselves and administrations are getting better and better, are they not, at addressing mental health and
Absolutely.
bringing on professionals and designing programs that can help?
Absolutely. The schools are much better. Indiana's a good example of bringing in programs in the school which makes support and mental health services more readily available. So unlike in my day where you had to leave the school to get the help you needed, a lot of the available mental health supports are right in the school, so it's more convenient, it's easier to access. Now, the outside resources are still there if things are a little beyond what the school can handle, and that's always, and there's a good relationship between the inside and the outside resources. So I think we're in a much better position to provide services than we used to be, but we also then identified a greater need than there used to be. So I think it's two things coming together. Still, I think that one of the things that comes up is safety in the school. Safe to say, by the way, in Pennsylvania is working very well, where when peers see a problem with a peer, they can report it anonymously, and then the school will get that information and be able to respond very quickly. So when we identify kids that are having trouble, we can do something very quickly.
So school family or your other family, either way, everybody needs to look out for one another.
Everybody's got to keep an eye on each other.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
No problem.
It's Dr. Ralph May with us here on Indiana in the Morning. Well, you're getting so good. Look at that.
Raining, 68 degrees in Indiana. Good morning. I'm Josh Whittison on WCCS 101.1 FM, AM 1160, WCCSradio.com. 9:02 on this 26th day of August 2024. A man from Guatemala is now in Indiana County Jail after leading Blairsville police on a chase Sunday evening. Officers were dispatched at 8:30 p.m. to South Spring Street for a report of a young woman and a baby jumping from a moving vehicle. Eyewitnesses described the van they jumped from to police, and as they were being treated by Citizens Ambulance, 22-year-old Ronnie Gomez Lopez returned to the scene in that van. Police tried to conduct a traffic stop, but he quickly fled. The chase ended when the van hit a retaining wall along East Brown Street. Lopez started to flee on foot, but police eventually used a taser to subdue him. When police went back to inspect the vehicle, they found a 3-year-old child inside. When police talked with the woman, she said Lopez was speeding and punching her when she and the baby fell out of the van due to the door not being fully shut. The woman and the 3-year-old that were found in the van were taken to Forbes Hospital, while the infant was flown to UPMC Children's Hospital in Pittsburgh and is in critical condition. Lopez was taken to IRMC for treatment before being placed in jail on charges of child endangerment, fleeing or attempting to elude police, simple assault, evading arrest on foot, resisting arrest, reckless endangerment, and DUI. WCCS News Time 9:03 news brought to you by Indiana Regional Medical Center. Better health, better life. WCCS News Time 9:04. Indiana School Board will hold a special meeting tonight, and the major agenda item is a motion to approve an ESCO agreement with Constellation Energy and the $5.4 million in financing it will require. The board is also scheduled to receive an update on the Eisenhower Elementary project and take up a number of personnel items for the new school year. The meeting starts at 7 o'clock tonight and will be held at the district office. The meeting will also be streamed online through the district's website. A dairyman charged with illegal possession of a firearm and drug possession is due in court today for a preliminary hearing. 49-year-old Walter Zilo will go before District Judge Christopher Welsh for the hearing. Blairsville police charged him after an incident July 19th when he was pulled over for a broken brake light. Zilo gave police permission to search his car, and officers found firearms, meth, and drug paraphernalia. It was also discovered Zilo was not allowed to possess a firearm as he is a convicted felon. He's been in Indiana County Jail since his arrest as he was unable to post $5,000 bail. Along with the prohibited firearm and drug possession charges, he is charged with possession of drug paraphernalia, carrying a firearm without a license, driving on a suspended license, and the aforementioned faulty brake light. 17-year-old Maya Calhoun of Northern Cambria was named the 2024 Fair Queen last night at the Indiana County Fair. The daughter of Mike and Brenda Calhoun, she is a senior at the Penns Manor Cyber School and the co-owner of MYKE Livestock. Maya is also the president of the Treasure Seekers 4-H Club and has held various offices in the Penns Manor FFA. Penns Manor's Erica Dixon was named alternate queen. Ava King from Homer Center was named Fair Ambassador. Now, today is Indiana County Commissioners Day at the fair. All veterans and senior citizens over the age of 65 will receive free admission to the grounds. And just a reminder that tonight is also the first night of C&L Carnival rides at the fair. The main event on the grandstand at 7 o'clock tonight is the stock gasoline and stock diesel 4x4 pickup pull. And just a reminder, check out our social media pages as we'll have updates from the fair throughout the week. WCCS News Time 9:07. AccuWeather forecast brought to you by Indiana Regional Medical Center. better health, better life. .68 and raining in Indiana. In our news at 9:30, IUP will once again host educators from around the world as the university hosts the Fulbright Distinguished Awards and Teaching Program for the 9th year. Take WCCS wherever you go by listening online using your mobile device or computer. Find the Listen Live link at WCCSradio.com, brought to you by Indiana Regional Medical Center and Community Living and Learning. I'm Josh Whittison for WCCS. News time, 9:08. Time for Sports in a Minute, brought to you by Indiana Regional Medical Center. Better health, better life. Here's Todd Marino.
All right, Josh, the Pirates, a 4-3 walk-off win yesterday over the Cincinnati Reds. Bucks took 3 out of 4 from the Redlegs. And next up, a 3-game series against the Chicago Cubs. Mitch Keller against Jamison Tyone tonight. It's a 6:15 airtime, 6:40 first pitch. Here in WCCS, manager Ben Charrington talking about Paul Skeens, Jared Jones, and others yesterday on his program. We'll hear some of his comments. Baseball history could be made today when the Red Sox play the Blue Jays. Danny Jansen will become the first guy to ever play for both teams in the same game. We'll tell you how that could be. Altoona lost to Richmond 5-2. Curve off today. They'll open a 6-game home set against New Hampshire tomorrow night, next to the last home series of the season. Steelers have until 4 o'clock Tuesday afternoon to cut their roster from 91 guys to 53. Keegan Bradley on the golf tour. Maybe Novak Djokovic on the tennis tour. Tennis's final major, the U.S. Open, getting underway today at Flushing Meadow, New York. And Lake Mary, Florida, is your Little League World Series champion. Sports in a Minute, brought to you by IRMC. Better health, better life. And it's the voice of Indiana County, WCCS 101.1 FM. AM 1160 and WCCSradio.com. Good morning to you. Thanks so much for being with us here today. It is a Monday morning, Monday, August 26th. We've had some rain here in this last hour. Could get some more through the course of the day, but as Alton Strong with us from the Indiana County Fair said last hour, that just keeps the dust down a little bit. That's a good way to look at it. Yeah. This is more a sign of how old we are getting to be, I think, than anything else. Gen X guys, which would be guys in their 20s and 30s by now, tend to think their music is still the best rock and roll music out there.
Of course.
But younger folks than them say, that's dad rock, which makes you think, well, gosh, we're granddad rock and beyond, if that's dad rock. So what are the best Gen X dad rock bands? Loudwire.com crunched some numbers to come up with what they call their Big Four. Big Four Gen X dad rock bands: Aerosmith, and they've been around since the mid-'70s.
Yeah.
AC/DC, them too. Van Halen, and Guns N' Roses. Those are your Gen X dad rock bands. They also did the Big Four of Boomer dad rock, which makes it granddad rock. The Beatles, the Eagles, Led Zeppelin, and the Rolling Stones. Those are your... But they didn't say what the younger generations consider to be their best rock and roll music. Just those two generations, dad rock and granddad rock. So it's more a sign of them people telling you how old you're getting.
Yeah.
I think.
It's almost getting to the point where the Generation X is now going to be the one saying, "Get off my lawn."
Yeah. I knew I'd get a reaction from this texter here.
Uh-oh. Is it who I think it is?
Yeah.
CBR?
Yeah. It doesn't,
Oh, boy.
Yeah, it's not on that topic, though.
Okay.
A study found getting married helps us to enjoy our dad rock longer and our granddad rock. But only guys, not women. So one major thing can make men live longer is getting married, but for women, not so much. In other words, guys, we're not such a bargain. Researchers in Canada tracking 7,000 people in over several years, and they found that men who were married or who got married during the study were twice as likely to age optimally compared to guys who stayed single. They defined optimal aging as not having any serious physical, mental, or emotional issues that kept them from living a happy life into old age. Mm-hmm. I think marriage helps because your spouse tends to encourage you to adopt healthier behaviors like quitting smoking and exercising regularly. Married men also report higher levels of happiness overall and have more social support. But funny thing, women who got married did not see any huge health benefits. Didn't seem to hurt, but getting married didn't exactly help them either. I think that's because now the ladies are taking care of us, but we're not doing the same for the ladies, and they continue to take care of themselves. The lead author of the study thinks it's because women just tend to have more experience maintaining their health and well-being independently, which I guess is another way of saying what I just said. Mm-hmm. In other words, they don't need the help. That said, something men can do to help their wife live longer: don't die. One thing that did have a negative effect on how women aged was losing their spouse or getting divorced. Okay, so once you get together, stay together as long as you possibly can.
Yeah.
9:14 in the morning. It is Indiana in the morning. It's WCCS 101.1 FM, AM 1160, WCCSradio.com. Indiana in the morning, always presented by First Commonwealth Bank. Time to be first. Sixteen minutes after 9 o'clock, it is the voice of Indiana County. It's WCCS 101.1 FM, AM 1160, and WCCSradio.com. Good morning to you. We're approaching Boomer Sports at 9:25, and we'll do our Money Matters report coming up with Aaron Real in just a moment or so. hearing, of course, as this football season has just begun, about games that are having to be moved to other days because they can't get officiating crews for all of the games now. And that's happening within the Heritage Conference, as we were talking earlier this morning. It's also a national problem. High school sports season is here. Athletic directors at all levels have seen a steady decline in sports officials in the last 20 years. Right now, the majority of referees are over 50 years old. And when we did a series on it a couple of years ago, a series for which we won a Pennsylvania Association of Broadcasters award, we were talking about officiating crews where several of the officials in the crew were over the age of 70 and still running up and down football fields and basketball courts. So the problem isn't getting much better. It takes 6 officials to referee one high school football game, and well, they're just not finding them. And it doesn't matter what state you happen to be in. That's a big, big problem. And so they're having to reschedule events. And when we're talking football there, but you think of all of the other sports that need officials. I know that volleyball has been a really, really popular sport, getting more and more popular. But as participation and interest has increased, the number of people officiating is actually going down. And I recall hearing at one point last year of only one official that was available for games in 3 different sites. And so what could they do? And a big part of the problem is the behavior of not only the parents and the coaches, but also the players themselves, according to what we have been told by several officials. So it's a real problem, and they are taking note of it on a national level now. In fact, I'm looking at an article, National Referee Shortage Could Impact the Future of High School Sports. There's also the fact that more sports are being added, too. And so participation in a number of different ways is awfully difficult now. So I guess we have to be extra patient, don't we, when we understand that games are being rescheduled to other days, and understand that that's the only way they can actually get the game played. 19 and almost 20 minutes after 9 o'clock. It's Indiana in the morning. Hey, let's look at the weather forecast for today. Partly sunny, a chance of a thunderstorm, and a high temperature of 83 degrees. Tonight down to 65 and partly cloudy. Tomorrow partly sunny and 89. Then Wednesday partly sunny, a chance of scattered afternoon thunderstorms. 91 degrees on Wednesday. Yeah. 85 on Thursday, partly to mostly cloudy, a chance of afternoon thunderstorms. And Friday partly cloudy, with a high temperature of 84 degrees. So a warm week ahead of us. That warmth a little bit slowed down by the fact that we've gotten rain for this past hour, and there are still vehicles going by with their wipers going, but probably that's because the vehicle in front of them is spraying them. But yeah, some rain here today. Maybe that'll keep down our temperatures through the course of the week. Right now in downtown Indiana, our temperature this morning is 69 degrees, and Indiana County 911 is clear. There's nothing new to report to you there. 9:21 in the morning. It's Indiana in the morning. Boomer Sports coming up in just a couple of moments, but we did promise you we'd get Money Matters on with Erin Real, and here she is. All right, Aaron, thank you so much. It's Indiana in the Morning at 9:23 on your Monday morning. Other business and consumer news, the average ATM fee hit a new record high of $4.70. An annual study found ATM fees are now higher than they have ever been. National average, $4.77. That's the combined total of what your bank and the ATM charge for out-of-network transactions come to. The average ATM charges $3.19. Your bank takes another $1.58. It's up 4 cents from last year. A decade ago, it was $4.35. 20 years ago, it was $2.66, which adjusted for inflation would be $4.42 now. Atlanta has the most expensive ATMs at $5.33.